Oh, what's up? What's happening? What everybody into? Yeah. Anybody else smell that? Everybody else smell it? You know what that remind me of, man? That smell remind me of my last visit back to my home state where I was born and raised. Once I got into the city, I started smelling this. I started smelling something rotten. Something, it just wasn't right. And as I moved in to the center of my old hangout, the smell got even worse. Because what I realized is that I had stepped into an environment where the people's souls were decaying and starting to smell. Their soul had got to the point of being starved, unattended to, neglected, to the point where their soul was like on life support. And you know that smell that comes from people who are near death? That's what I was smelling. The death of a people. It was like walking into the cemetery and everybody was dead except the caretaker. Everybody was dead except the caretaker. That's how I felt. I was in a graveyard. And I was the only one alive. Because everybody else, they consisted of at what point in time will I be high? Will I be intoxicated? Where would I get the money to be so that I can become intoxicated? Who can I latch on to become intoxicated? And intoxication kills the heart. And when the heart dies, you kill the inner man, the inner self, the higher self, and your soul, your spiritual self, your higher self suffers. It suffers. You keep using, it keeps suffering. You keep using, it gets sick. You keep using, it gets sicker. I'm talking about your inner self, and you'll begin to see it on your face. You begin to see the sickness on your face when you go to wash your face. You'll see what you see on your face is a reflection of your soul. Is what the intoxicants, using intoxicants daily, what you see on your face of displeasure, hardship, stress, what you see on your face is what your soul look like. Depressed. And you keep using and using it till you had to go to the doctor. And the doctor say you need to back up off of intoxicants. But no, you keep using and using it until now you are hospitalized. And you only laying there waiting for the day that you can get strong enough, your soul can get strong enough to carry you back out the hospital, back into that environment where you can continue to get intoxicated. So yeah, I felt like when I went home for a visit, I felt like I walked into a graveyard and I could smell the stench of death everywhere. I can see that the people was moving as though they were in a movie. The Walking Dead, or what they got, the Night of the Dead, or the Life of the Dead. Meaning there were people, they were standing up straight. They had clothes on. And they can speak. And they could hear. They could be understood. But they were dead. They were zombies. They was like in a perpetual circle that only kept looping them around. There was no exit. They couldn't find an exit. Something kept them in the loop, chasing something. Drugs. They wasn't chasing a way out. They wasn't chasing opportunity to improve their condition and the conditions of their environment. That was far away from their mind. They was like buzzards sitting on a fence, actually waiting for something to die so they can swarm down on it and eat. It's almost like Hollywood saw the same thing that I saw when I went home to visit. I mean, someone was extra loud and screaming. You know, somebody standing on 13th Street hollering at somebody on 14th Street. Hey, Bobby, you ain't. I was like, wow, they can talk. Although they sound like the brand of an ass, but they can talk. They have the ability to communicate. But at the same time, they are neglectful of their soul. And I know how that happened. Somebody separated them from the source of their help and their strength. Allah, Lord of the world. Somebody separated them from the guidance of Allah. Because if you were still connected to the guidance of Allah, Allah has made using intoxicants and gambling forbidden. Allah has told us in the Quran that the devil, Shaitan, uses intoxicants and gamblings to create intimacy between each other, to make you and me compete against each other with a certain type of animosity toward each other. Not to build with each other, but to compete with each other. And when we question that, Allah gave further instructions. He said to the people who say, well, okay, what about if we use it responsibly? You know how they had the advertisement, drink responsibly. This question was dealt with over 1,400 years ago about using intoxicants responsibly. Because when Allah was instructing the companions, the believers, to leave alone intoxicants and gambling, he began by informing them that they were tools of the devil. And then He didn't bother them. They still was drinking and they still was coming to the prayer. They were still drinking. They were still coming to the prayer. Still was a graveyard. It still stunk around there. But then Allah gave them some more spiritual enlightenment, some spiritual enlightenment, and told them in response to, well, if I don't come to prayer drunk and I come able to understand, I'm just nice, I'm not drunk, but I'm nice. Allah addressed that by saying, in intoxicants, there is some good and there is some harm. But the harm is greater than the good. You see how Allah is dealing with the situation, instruction. This is what society wants to separate you from, this type of guidance from Allah. First, Allah say, intoxicant and gambling are tools of the devil. Now, I ain't saying your government is a devil, but it got some characteristics of the devil that is questionable now. To the point, don't they sell drugs and intoxicants to their people in this country? Didn't they make gambling legal in this country? I mean, Allah said that intoxicants and gambling are tools of the devil, and he uses them to do what? To cause intimacy between you, to separate you, to pit you one against another. Okay, the government is selling alcohol. Now they're into selling weed, and they want to try to figure out how they can take over the opioid money too. You know, might as well keep all the money home. So Allah said that these things are tools of the devil. If we begin to not use that, what happened? You think the one who put those things out there will be so happy with us? No, they'll begin to see an awakening. Of course, like during the time when the revelation was first rendered back over 1,400 years ago, some of the companions of the prophet asked a question, and it was an intelligent, logical question. What if we do not become drunk and we use it responsibly? Like they talk about responsible use of alcohol and drugs right now today. If you have a blood level of so and so, you good to go, but you still need be cautious, and don't exceed that, because that become irresponsible use of intoxicants. Well, Allah says to that, in that is some good and some bad. But the harm, the bad part, the harm outweighs the good. You see how? Now go reflect on that, go think about that. First, he allowed us to think about this being tools of the shaitan, of the devil. Anyone who put up, set up, open up, and distribute drugs and intoxicants in a community is acting as a shaitan in the flesh. Because 9 times out of 10, if they're selling drugs, intoxicants, they also have tools for gambling, scratch tickets, the gambling, the bingo machine, or whatever machine they might have in those establishments. So they bring these two elements together that Allah has warned us against by telling us who is the producer of it. and why they put it there to create intimacy between you, separation, to make sure there would be no unity amongst you. So when they ask the question, what about a little bit? Allah say, in it is some good and there is some harm, and the harm outweighs the good. Think about that too. Then Allah sent a decree to test those who believe and those who don't believe, or those who are struggling with that belief. He put the test on you now. I told you who is the author of intoxicants and gambling and why he present them to you as a people. See, people have been using these tools for a long time. This ain't no new tool in the 21st century. Matter of fact, when the Europeans first got here to America, they knew to bring those tools of the shaitan with them. Fire water, the Indians used to call it, and they still call it today. Fire water, liquor, and gambling, taking chances. Put the gambling casinos on their reservations. See how he brought those prohibited things? He brought them over here knowing the full well the harm of them. He knew the harm of alcohol would have on the Indians when he gave it to them. So now Allah went to the test the believer from the non-believer, because now you have proof, you have a history. Shaitan is the author. Look what he did to the Indians. Look what alcohol did to Samson when he met Delilah. You remember these stories? They even went so far as to slander the prophets. Remember what they said? Noah was intoxicated when they slandered him and said he committed incest. He was under intoxicated. He was intoxicated. So they know the harm of intoxication. They know the harm of alcohol and drugs. You have examples all the way from biblical times. Samson got drunk. He was a righteous man. He got drunk hanging out with Delilah. Another issue we're going to deal with, but we're talking about alcohol and intoxicants and gambling right now. We'll get to the Jezebels. But we got this situation where there's what happened when Samson met Delilah? Didn't he begin to drink? Once he began to drink and starts separating himself from the instructions of Allah, then they turned him into a thief. Then they turned that same man that was righteous, after making him disobey Allah and become a drunk, they turned him into a thief and into a murderer. You see? They know how to manipulate the situation now. And we got the proof right there in the story of Samson and Delilah. They know how to use alcohol, intoxicants, rather. Look at the story of the prophet Noah, peace and blessing be upon him. And I want to make this perfectly clear. They lied and slandered. They lied and slandered the prophet Noah, peace and blessings be upon him, because he did not do what they accused him of doing. But they only let you know that even a prophet would not be safe from the use of intoxicants. And that if a prophet used intoxicants, he could fall into incest and adultery and fornication. Even he would not be able to withstand the harm of intoxicants. You feeling me? So Allah made using intoxicants prohibited against his law altogether. And at the time that the companions heard that and was put to the test, some of the companions had the alcohol ready to come up like this, and the message was given, and they took that and they poured it out. Some of the companions had the alcohol in their mouth when they heard the revelation. It's haram, forbidden to use. Allah warned us. He told us that there was some benefit in the harm, and the harm was greater than the benefit. They got it in their mouth, and they reflected on what Allah had instructed them. And when he came with the prohibition, he spit it out. Some of them, when they heard the instructions coming from Allah about intoxicants, had already swallowed it. And they took their fingers and stuck it in their throat to expel as much of the alcohol as they could from their stomach. This is because they believed what Allah and his messenger has said about intoxicants and gambling. They believed it. Those were the Qawi, the strong Muslims. They did not disobey Allah and use tools of the devil that Allah said he uses to cause intimacy between each other. Hatred, disappointment, separation, pulling away, division, tribalism, nationalism. All of this is side effects of using intoxicants. I don't care if you bought the thing that intoxicates you. I don't care if you went to a legal weed dispensary where they used to lock a man up for 40 years if he tried to make a living selling weed. They'll arrest him, find him with bagged up weed for distribution, charge him with possession with the intent to distribute, which carried a sentence of 5 to 40 years in a state or federal penitentiary. And some people could have 12 dime bags bagged up, $90 in his pocket, and be charged with possession with the intent to distribute and separated from his family, mocked in society on paper, mocked on paper as a disobedient rebel against society, their society. So we know that Allah has made drinking, using intoxicant, and gambling impermissible now. Allah is the best guide. He got the best instructions for us. He didn't leave us out there. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, explained further about this intoxicant. He said the one who produces it, you know, you pay me to grow you grapes for the purpose of making wine. You pay me to use my land to plant seeds to grow weed. The one who makes it, the one who help him make it, the one who pull it up, bag it up, the one who pour it in the bottles and put the labels on it, the one who transport it, the one who consume it, the one who benefits from it, all of them are cursed. Cursed. And if Allah curse you, man, you wow, man. Yeah, that's another subject right there. So what we don't want to do, man, we don't want to take lightly the instructions of Allah concerning the use of intoxicants. Because what Allah and His Messenger has said about it is true. They are tools of the devil. He uses them to separate you from Allah, then separate you from each other. That's His purpose. In His arrogance, He even tell you and give you examples of what intoxicants can do. Look what it done to Samson and Delilah. Look what it done when we brought it here to the native Indians and gave it to them. Look what happened to them. Look what we told you about even if a prophet used it, what will happen to him. Then we here today in this present life telling you that these same people of the same mindset for the same purposes is giving it to you and me, offering it to me and you, because I ain't accepted, but I'm a rarity. I'm a rarity. So therefore, they can just ignore me. What? We don't look. Get on out of here. We don't care about what you're saying. Look, we got all this. We own all this. These people don't want to hurt nothing you got to say. They listening to us. Your platform is not big enough to reach enough. We won't let your platform get big enough to reach enough people to cut them off from using intoxicants and gambling. That's why we pay the church to stay away from these subjects that would put a hole in the pocket of the government revenue if the preacher taught don't use intoxicants. Don't support that mediocre use, that responsible use. They don't even promote that anymore. They just don't even talk about it like it's no problem anymore. Like drinking and gambling, bingo, scratch tickets, trying to hit the pick six and Super Bowl and all that stuff. It's like it's normal. It's normal. And it's the way of life. It don't harm anybody, regardless of what Allah said about it. It don't harm you. What harm did it harm you that you try to win $1 million for $1? What harm? How can that harm anybody? That's their rationale. Good speech, slippery tongue over the speech of your Lord. Stay up, man. Stay away. Stay vigilant, man. Go back. Read the Quran and follow the instructions.